50 things I don't buy or pay for. I've made a couple videos like this over the past few years, but now that it's a new year and some things have changed, I figured it would be a good opportunity to refresh and start over. Some of the things we're about to talk about are things that I have never purchased and probably never will. Some of them are things that I used to buy but no longer do for one reason or another. Some of them are things for which I've simply just found a better solution, either in the sense of something that saves me money or is more convenient and somehow simplifies my life. Let's get into it. Starting off, let's talk about cable and streaming services. Not only do I not have cable, but I don't have Netflix, I don't have Hulu, I don't have Amazon Prime Video, I don't have any of those services. And the reason is that I just am not a big TV person. I just don't care that much about TV. Most of the video content I watch is from YouTube. And on the odd occasion that there is a show on one of the streaming services that I want to watch, I will sign up for it for 1 month, I'll watch the show, and then I'll cancel it. And it's really easy to not be a TV person when you don't have a TV, which is something else that I just don't have. What are you guys doing in here? Okay, well, speaking of streaming services, something else that I don't buy or use or pay for is Spotify. And that's simply because I personally prefer to have actual records. I just really like the tangible experience of listening to music as an experience rather than just as background noise, or listening to a whole album rather than just listening to a song. Realistically speaking, Spotify is significantly less expensive than buying actual records, but to me, it's just not the same. Let's get you out of here. Now, something else that I never buy is the newest tech. Anytime that I've had to upgrade something like my phone, for example, I'm always happy to buy a much older model. Like when the iPhone 10 came out, I went and bought the iPhone 7. And when the iPhone 14 or 13 or whatever came out, I went and bought the iPhone 11. The truth is that nowadays, there's very little difference between the newest release and something that came out a year or 2 or even 3 years ago. And so I don't really see a reason to pay premium when I can get basically all the same features at half the price. Now, something else that I've stopped buying is what I call uncertain or adventurous fashion, and I guess I need to give a little bit of context and explain what that means by my terminology. You know, when you go to the store and you try on a new piece of clothing, and maybe it's a little bit different than something you would usually buy or usually wear, and you look at it and you're like, yeah, like it looks good on me, it fits well, it checks all the boxes, but it just doesn't really feel like you. I've stopped doing that because time and time again, I would buy something that was a color that maybe I wouldn't typically wear, or a pattern or a style that I wouldn't typically wear. And even though there was nothing wrong with it and it looked fine on me, I just found that once it was in my closet, I never really reached for it. I wear basically the same thing every single day. And as much as that might be boring to some people, to me, it's just what I'm the most comfortable in. And I always feel my best in it because it is what feels like me. And that leads easily into the next point, which is impulse purchases and things that are on sale. A good rule of thumb to follow is that if you actually needed or wanted something, you'd be aware of it. And so if you walk into a shop and you just see something that appeals to you on a whim, but you didn't think about it before that, or it's just on sale and you want to buy it because you think it's a good deal, you probably don't need it. And by doing that, not only do I save money, but I save myself having a lot of clutter around the house. And avoiding impulsive purchases is actually quite easy for me because I don't have Amazon Prime. I've definitely talked about this in other videos, but I think that having Prime subconsciously causes you to spend more money than you otherwise would, just because there's so little friction between you and buying basically anything you could ever want in the entire world. By not having unchecked access to free shipping all day, every day, it actually gives me time to consider each purchase before I make it, or maybe to even have to go out to a store to buy it, which I'm not going to do if it's not something that I haven't actually set out to buy. Not having a Prime membership is something that I kind of hold as a personal principle. Like, I don't subscribe to their service because I don't believe in their business model, and it's not something that I want to pay for or support. And in that same way, something else that I'm also very passionate about not paying for is banking fees and credit card fees. And I know I've touched on both of these points in previous videos. I refuse to pay a bank for the privilege of holding on to my money for me. It's just something that I absolutely will not do. So I prefer to work with small banks or credit unions, and there's plenty of them out there. For my credit card, I use it just like a debit card. I pay it off in full at the end of every month so that I don't have to pay any interest or late payment fees or penalties. And I don't want to give my money to corporations like that for no reason. I also refuse to pay for like a financial advisor or an investment broker or anybody like that. Most of these guys charge 1% for managing your portfolio, and people don't tend to realize, but over the lifespan of your portfolio, your investment career, that can reduce your earnings by hundreds of thousands of dollars. It works out to being about 30% of your growth over time, which is crazy. And so I mostly just buy low-cost index funds. I set them and forget them. I don't really have any reason to pay somebody to do that for me. A bunch of vitamins and supplements. In fact, you guys are currently standing on the shelf where all of my vitamins used to live, and now it's just a big blank empty space. I try to eat healthy most days, I really do, and I think most of the time I do an okay job, but I have a lot going on most weeks. It just doesn't always work out the way that I had planned. In fact, More weeks than I would like to admit, I wind up eating pasta 5 nights in a row for dinner just because it's easy and it's quick. And I mean, I like pasta, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really feel like guilty about it, but I know it's not the most nutritionally complete thing. And I think that having something additional to just fill in those gaps is a really good thing. But to be totally honest, I don't love taking pills. I found that it was always a really hard routine to stick to because it was just unpleasant to me. This is one area of my life that has really needed simplification. A big thank you to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. AG1 is a foundational nutritional supplement designed to support whole body health. It contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, including antioxidants, adaptogens, prebiotics, probiotics, everything you need. AG1 is GMO free, it's gluten free, it's vegan friendly, it's NSF certified for sport, which means that they use the highest quality ingredients possible. Every morning I take 1 scoop and mix it into some water. I like to add some ice cubes. I find that it's extra refreshing when it's extra cold. Give it a shake. I usually drink this on my way into work or just before I leave the house. I'm dripping it down my face. If you're wondering what it tastes like, I would say the predominant flavor is kind of pineapple. It's a little bit tropical and fruity. Since I've started drinking AG1, I've noticed that my skin is a lot clearer. I've noticed that I have a lot more energy throughout the day. Like I don't get that mid-afternoon crash like I used to. And if you really care to know, my poops have been superb. If you head over to drinkag1.com/according to Nicole, you'll also get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 K2 drops, plus 5 free travel packs. So just head over to drinkag1.com/according to Nicole or click the link in the description box down below. Thank you again to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. Fast food or coffee out? Because, well, I mean, you're in my fridge. I have a fridge full of food. I have food and coffee at home. Why do I need to go pay somebody a premium to make a worse product than I can make for myself? I also just don't go out for lunch in general. Like, I'm not a big eater in the morning. I don't eat breakfast at all, ever. And I usually eat a really small lunch of just like a small sandwich and a cup of tea, and then dinner is my big meal. But the idea of going out and getting like lunch out, getting some really heavy kind of elaborate meal as my first meal of the day is not at all appealing to me. I've also never used Uber Eats or Skip the Dishes or any of those types of apps. And all of those meal delivery kits, I think they're really overpriced as well. You're basically going through all of the trouble of having to cook at home, having to wash all the dishes, but the meals wind up being almost as expensive as ordering in. So I'm not sure I really see the point. This one's also probably pretty obvious, but I don't buy bottled water. Obviously, I mean, it's not good for the environment, but it's also just a huge hassle to have to go to the store and buy water and drag those cases home, and it's like overpriced because it's just water. I mean, water is almost free from the tap, so yeah, no bottled water in my life. Cheers. House cleaning, yard work, and other small projects. If there is something that I am physically capable of doing on my own, I generally just prefer to do it myself. Not only because it saves me money, but because I really just like knowing that I have done things A, to my standards, and B, if it's something I've never done before, that I've learned a new skill. Most recently, I replaced the headlight bulb, the cabin filter, and the air filter in my car on my own. I looked up some tutorials on YouTube, it seemed easy enough. I spent $60 on all 3 parts combined, and it only took me about half an hour to put them all in. And if I had taken my car into a shop to have that done, I would have spent hundreds of dollars in shop fees and labor fees to have it done, and I did it myself, and now I know that it's something that I can do. I've installed my own light fixtures, I've painted part of my house on my own. If I can do it, I'm gonna do it. I know my limitations, I don't mess with things that are likely to cause explosions or fires or floods or anything dangerous, but if I can do it, I will, and I actually like to. Hey, look who's here. Say hey, buddy. Hello. I don't pay for pet insurance. I just don't really believe in insurance for things that are not legally required. I think that it's kind of a cash grab, insurance companies or for-profit companies, and I don't really see the point in paying them for something that I may or may not use. I've always just preferred to put money aside in a savings account so that if I need it, I have it, and if I don't need it, I still have it. I also don't pay for dog grooming, dog walking, or dog sitting. I can groom and walk him myself, and I would much rather do that than take the chances of somebody being unkind to him or mistreating him or not taking good care of him. Same thing for dog sitting. If I need somebody to watch him, he's generally just gonna go to my mom's place. But if somebody ever hurt him, I would have to dispose of a body. And yeah, I really don't wanna have to deal with all the chaos, so I just avoid all of that and take care of him by myself, right? Right. Love you. Love you. I'd kill somebody if they hurt you. Should we do a rapid fire here really quickly? Animal products, don't buy them because I'm vegan. Fabric softener, don't buy it because it gunks up your machine and your clothing and makes your clothing wear out faster. Dryer sheets, don't buy them because they're not really necessary. Car wash, I don't really buy it because my car gets washed for free in the rain and I really just don't care that much about my car. And holiday decor, I don't buy it because I don't really celebrate most holidays and I don't really care to have to store things for 364 days a year just to put them out for one day. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A smartwatch or fitness tracker. I know when I've been active in a day and I know when I haven't been, and I don't really feel the need to have something strapped to my wrist telling me that I'm not doing good enough. I know, I don't care. And as far as a smartwatch in particular, I have a phone. I don't need a tinier phone strapped to my wrist. Seems wasteful to me, not a big fan. Likewise, I don't have a Google Home speaker or a Hey Alexa or whatever that stuff is called. I have 2 functioning legs. I can turn my own lights on and off. I can add things to my calendar on my own. I think it's a really useful thing for somebody who's maybe disabled or handicapped, but for the rest of us, yeah, I just think it's a tool for laziness. Unpopular opinion, but I said what I said. Recreational substances. This one's probably somewhat self-explanatory, but I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't think other people should do drugs or smoke, but I guess whatever makes you happy. As far as alcohol, I drink very, very little, very infrequently. Not to any extent that is really even considered recreational. It's more like a culinary pairing for me most of the time at best. But yeah, drugs are bad and cost money and make your teeth fall out, so don't do drugs. Or do, I don't know, I'm not your mom, do whatever you want.
Now, as your counselor, I'm here to tell you about drugs and alcohol and why they're bad, okay?
Cheap furniture. When I first moved out on my own, I was flat broke. I found myself in a house that I really couldn't afford to furnish. So I did what a lot of people do, and I just bought the cheapest furniture possible. I bought this $30 IKEA table, which really needs to be replaced. I bought a $400 couch. I know a lot of people assumed that it was an IKEA couch, but it was actually significantly worse than an IKEA couch. This couch was never comfortable from the very first day I brought it home, and within 6 months, it looked worse than what most people put out to the curb. My aunt works in the interior design and real estate industry. Actually, she recently found my channel, so she might be watching this video. Hello. But she was able to get me an in with one of her wholesalers who sold me this couch. And I'm pretty sure that this place sells furniture to realtors and to designers for the purpose of staging. Like, I don't think you're actually supposed to use this furniture because it's so terribly made, but nonetheless, that's what I had. And while you might be thinking that it served its purpose for a while, I would tend to disagree because I just wound up having to get rid of it and buy all new all over again and spending more money in the long run. And in fact, I had a hard time getting rid of that couch because it was so beaten up. I tried putting it for free on the internet and nobody seemed to want it. The city wanted $50 to haul it away. I was like, oh my God, I spent $400 on this terrible couch. Nobody even wants it. I have to pay to get rid of it. Now I try to invest into higher quality pieces, and definitely that's why my house is not still fully furnished, because good quality furniture is absolutely not cheap. But I'm trying to be more intentional with my purchases, and I'm trying to take my time and buy things that are good quality, things that are gonna last, and things that I actually really like, so that I can make the most use of them and get the most value out of them in the long run, even if they cost more upfront. Makeup. I obviously don't really wear makeup. Once in a while, I will use a little bit of concealer if I have like a pimple or a blemish that I'm trying to hide, but otherwise, I've never really been a makeup person. I have fairly reactive skin, and I think that clogging my pores with additional goop on my face probably isn't gonna help. I also don't wear nail polish. A new car. I have never bought a brand new car, and I can't really ever foresee myself doing so unless I somehow wound up in a position where I had more money than I knew what to do with. I'm not saying that that's the position that everybody's in when they buy a new car, but knowing how much value a car loses pretty much as soon as you drive it off the lot, and how quickly it continues to lose value after that, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. Kind of like what I was saying before about buying a new phone. I just buy one that's a couple years older, I save a whole bunch of money, and it does exactly the same thing. Generic art. I've only recently started putting stuff up on the walls here. I've been in this house about 1.5 years now, and after doing some renovations and trying to get everything sorted, I'm a little bit behind, but I just really don't want to hang a bunch of generic stuff from like Marshalls on my walls. I don't see the point in that. And I think that it just means a lot more when you curate your space with things that actually have a sentimental value to you, rather than just buying the same print that everybody has on their walls, or that's in every single real estate photo or whatever else. Now, something that I used to buy a little bit every once in a while and I've stopped doing entirely is video games. I have never ever been a gamer in any sense of the word. but I used to every once in a while enjoy playing a little bit of PlayStation or maybe downloading an app on my phone, and I realized that even though it wasn't really bringing any value to my life, I was using it as a distraction tactic to prevent myself from doing the things I actually needed to do or working on the things I actually wanted to work on. And so I decided just to cut it out because it wasn't how I wanted to allocate my time. But something that I have never paid for and never bought and never believed in, and probably never will, is extended warranties. I take pretty good care of my stuff, and obviously things can happen outside of your control, but I tend to just kind of bet on the fact that it's most likely not going to happen, and even if it does happen, I'd much rather just deal with that when and if it happens than spend extra money in anticipation of something that might not. It's kind of exactly what I was saying before about pet insurance.
Extended warranty? How can I lose?
Now, I know that before we were talking about how I like to wear pretty much the same thing every day. Something that I have never bought and that I probably never ever will buy is used clothing. I am a little bit of a germaphobe, maybe a little bit more than a little bit, and just the idea of going to a thrift store and buying something that like might have bed bugs on it or have someone else's BO caked into it, it's a no from me. I can't do it. But at the same time, I do try to avoid buying like really cheap clothing or fast fashion. In fact, I have never ever shopped at H&M or Zara or Shein or any of those places. On the odd occasion, I do buy something that's more from the fast fashion realm, something that's a little bit cheaper and more mass produced. I still try to be conscious to make sure that it is somewhat well made, that it still seems to be decent quality, and I wear it pretty much indefinitely until it wears out. And one that probably will not apply to most people, but definitely applies to me, is a gym membership. I really just don't like working out. I know how that sounds. I don't really care about working out. I like to be active in the summer. I like to go for long walks. I'm happy to go for a bike ride. I'm happy to like do that kind of stuff where it's fun and enjoyable. But working out just for the purpose of working out to me is not enjoyable. And perhaps it's because I don't really have a goal. Like, I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm not trying to build muscle. And I'm sure people are gonna have something to say about that, but I don't care. Let's go to the kitchen for a second. Now, if you were to follow marketing hype, you might be led to believe that you need a whole bunch of different household cleaning products, a different product for pretty much every surface in your place, right? Wrong. I don't buy a million different cleaning products. In fact, I get most of my cleaning done with just 2 different things, one of which is a multi-purpose spray cleaner, whatever. I buy a big concentrated bottle of this. I use Mrs. Meyer's, but you can use whatever you like. Put a couple tablespoons into here, fill the rest with water. It is good for the countertops, it is good for the cabinets. You can use it to dust down pretty much any surface or wipe down any surface. I use the same product to mop my floors, just a little bit into a bucket of hot water. And the other thing I use is Barkeeper's Friend. This stuff is great for the kitchen sink, it's great for the bathroom sink, toilet, bathtub, shower, you name it. And with these 2 things, I can clean the vast majority of my house without having to invest a whole bunch of money and buy a million different products. Now, while we're in the kitchen, something else that I also don't like to buy are spice blends, like pre-mixed spice blends, things like taco spice or garam masala. I prefer to make my own spice blends at home. It's much cheaper and they're actually generally much better. I've always found that the store-bought spice mixes are excessively salty and not very flavorful, so I just make them at home. I have pretty much every spice you could ever want. I have an entire drawer full of spices, so there's really no reason for me to buy pre-mixed taco spice or whatever else. And in that same line of thought, I've stopped buying salad dressing because once again, I find that most salad dressing from the store is either excessively sugary or excessively vinegary, and it's not particularly pleasant. And I can make pretty much any salad dressing at home from scratch using ingredients I always have on hand. And again, it will be way better and much less expensive. And something else that I'm very much against buying in general is cheap kitchen gear. We were talking before about friction and about how the more friction there is involved in doing something, the more difficult or unpleasant it is for you to do something, the less likely you are to do it consistently. That's pretty much common sense. I think that the reason a lot of people don't cook at home consistently is due to friction in the kitchen, due to not having nice gear to use. If your knives are dull, if your pans are scratched and dented and gross, or maybe your food sticks to them, all of these things are going to make you less likely to want to cook from scratch at home. Good kitchen gear doesn't have to be particularly expensive, but even if you really want to splurge and get something a little higher end, in most cases it's still going to be significantly cheaper than ordering in all the time, and if that's the thing that allows you to continue to cook at home and to be consistent about it, I think it's a great investment to make. But on the topic of food, something that I don't buy is organic groceries. We talked about this in last week's video when I unpacked 5 scams that have become so normalized we don't realize them anymore. I generally find organic food to be quite scammy in its nature. Like, I just don't think that it actually is that much better for you. It's certainly not something I'm willing to pay more for, and so most of the produce I buy, most of the groceries I buy are not organic, and I don't really care. Gifts, but bear with me before you get too angry here. I don't believe in buying gifts for people just for the purpose of buying gifts. Like, just because it's a certain holiday or their birthday even, I don't think that there's a point in buying something for somebody if it's not something that you know that they're gonna want and need and use and appreciate. I think it's wasteful. I think it also makes it incredibly awkward to give somebody something that you know that they don't actually care about, and then they have to pretend that they appreciate it when they don't. So if there's something that I can buy for somebody as a gift that I know that they're gonna appreciate, that I know that they're gonna enjoy, I'm so happy to do that. I actually really like doing that. But buying something for somebody just out of a feeling of obligation, to me, is a tradition that should be left behind. And yes, I do feel the same way when I'm on the receiving end. I don't really appreciate people buying me things that I don't like, that I don't want, that I don't need. I don't like them wasting their money on stuff that has no purpose. I don't like cluttering my home with things that I don't value. And so again, if somebody is actually able to give me a gift that I really genuinely like and appreciate, that's awesome, but I don't really expect gifts just because it's a holiday or my birthday or whatever else. I don't really care about that kind of thing. Something else that I don't buy are candles or plugins or diffusers. I tend to be pretty sensitive to smell, and I find all of that stuff, even the natural stuff, to be incredibly offensive smelling most of the time. I find that it gets into my clothing, it gets into my hair, I can taste it in the air. I hate it. For that same reason, I also don't use perfume. Again, I just find it to be overpowering and stinky. I smell really good. I will say that about myself. I won't compliment myself often, but I will say that I consistently smell really good. I smell like laundry detergent. I smell like coconut shampoo. I smell like deodorant. I smell like flowers. I smell good all the time, but it's not the kind of smell that's gonna punch you in the face when you walk past me. It's not gonna choke you out. Something else that I try very hard to avoid buying are things that I'm only gonna use once or only gonna use briefly, just because I think it's wasteful. Again, a waste of money and just another piece of clutter in your home that you probably don't actually need in the long run. So an example might be like a tool. If you need one tool for one moment, one quick job, just try to borrow those things from someone else if possible, or try to rent it. And something else that kind of fits into that same theme are books. I'm not the type of person who likes to keep a book after I've read it. I really have no interest in rereading most books, and so I actually don't buy new books. I do like to read. I have bought a handful of new books in the past, but they're just really expensive, and I find that I can read through them really quickly, and then it's like, now what? I know libraries, of course, are an option. I just prefer to have a newer, cleaner book. I know, again, I'm gonna get flack for that, I'm just being honest. But in my local neighborhood, there are some book swap groups online. So you can basically read a book and then swap it with a neighbor who has a book that you might like and they might want yours, and you can just swap them. A lot of people just give them away for free. And so I've been able to amass a pretty decent collection of newer releases that are in basically mint condition, and it saves me so much money because books are now like $20 to $30 each. And if you go through a book in a couple days, it's not sustainable to me. Anyways, that's it. That is my updated list. That is 50 things. That's a lot. 50 things that I don't buy, don't pay for, don't own, don't care about, maybe used to buy, maybe don't buy anymore. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on all of these things. I'm sure some of them are things you guys will agree with, some of them are things you will disagree with, but that's what makes us all different, so that's life. If you enjoyed this video at all, please go ahead and hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so yet, because by the way, in case you were unaware, it's totally free to subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram at according_to_Nicole. You can check me out on Patreon for additional content. I'll put links to everything in the description box down below. Other than that, thank you guys so much as always for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care. I'll see you next week. Bye!